Welcome back. So far, we have learned about object-oriented programming in Python. We have learned about classes. We have learned about objects. We have learned about instance method. We have learned about different concept of all this object-oriented programming, right? So today, let's learn about class method, static method, and the difference between them. So let's get started. So to demonstrate this, so first I'll take an example of, let's say, from date time. Let's import date. To take an example, let's create a class called calculator. And let's have a constructor. So it will have def init, let's say self dot version, it's equal to, and let's take this input version. And for now, let's skip this part. So I'll talk about typings in Python later on. Let's say version. And then let's have a description. Let's say def. So now we'll have an instance method called description, which will basically say description. We'll say self. And here what would say is we'll print using the f string. We'll say currently the version of calculator is self.version. We have a class called calculator, and we are instantiating this class in the constructor. It's taking the version, and we're setting this version to the instance of this class, and we have an instance method. If the method inside this class have self in it, then we regard that as a instance method. So now if I want to create an object of this class, let's say calculator1 equal to calculator, let's pass a version of 10, and let's copy paste this, and let's have a version of 100, and let's say calculator 2. So now what we can say is let's print the description. Let's say calc1 dot description. So let me just copy and paste, and let's say calc dot description. And if I run this code, so we see, so we have two instances. We have calculator 1, we have calculator 2, and then we say currently the version of calculator is 10, and for the second calculator we have the version is 100. So let's say inside this class, let's have another method. Let's say def add numbers, and it will take self, and then so it will take two numbers. So if you remember, we have learned about unpacking an argument. So we can say args. So today let's use built-in function sum. So here we can say return, and we can use the built-in function sum. So what basically sum does is it returns the sum of a start value default plus an iterable of numbers. So this args is an iterable. So let's say here args, or we can name this as numbers. So if you can see this, we have two instance method. We have this description, and then we have this add numbers. But if you see, like in this description, we are using this self keyword. So what is self? Self is nothing but this object or this instance, right? But in the case of add numbers, we are not dependent on the instance itself, right? So why not? Let's just remove it. But if I click here, so it says here self at the rate calculator. That means this is a static method. So what's a static method? So a static method is a method inside a class which does not have any association with the instance. So in this description, this is an instance method. So it has a association with the instance, with the current instance, right? But in this case, we don't have any association with the instance of this class. So we can just simply write like this. So let me just run this code. So now if I want to use this add numbers, I cannot do calc1 dot add numbers. Let me print this because it runs something. So we get an exception. Why is that? So it is because this is a static method. So we can't use it from the instance. So we need to use it from the class. So if I say calculator dot add numbers, so in this case should run. So we don't pass any number. Let's say 10. So in the previous example, I don't pass any number. So you may say that because we don't pass any number, because of that we are given exception. No, we are not. Let's say 10, 11, and 12. Let me run this code again, and you see we still have the exception. Why is that? Because we are trying to access the static method of a class. This method doesn't have any association with the instance. We are getting an exception. But if I want to use this add numbers, I should use from the class rather than from the instance. So now if I say class name dot, if I access this add numbers, now I should be able to get the result. So you can say, why not we can directly use this, like we can remove this from the class and then we can use directly outside, right? So that's your preference. We can have this function called directly, or we can have some utility for this. So now I prefer to write add numbers because it's something related to calculator. Or we can have some math class where we can add numbers like that, but I prefer to add here, right? So first, let's understand the difference between instance method and a static method. Instance method have an association with the class, but this static method doesn't have any association with the class, but with the calculator. So if I want to access this instance method, I need to create an instance. But if I want to access this static method, I want to use the class. As you are writing this code, you know that this is a static method. But if someone third person coming and reading your code, will they understand this is a static method? I don't think they will understand. But we can use the rate static method to say that this is a static method, so that any other developers who are coming and reading this method, they can understand that this is a static method. So this is the difference between instance method and static method. So to demonstrate the class method, so I'll comment this and I'll write another example. So let's say we have a class person, and it has a constructor, and it takes self dot name equal to name, and it says self dot age is equal to age. As usual, let's remove this, and let's say self, and let's say name and age. And then we have a instance method here. Let's say def. So description, it will have self, it will say print, it will say f, let's use f string, and say self dot name is self dot age years old. We have this example, we have a person, and we have this description. Let's create an instance of the class. Let's say Pratap, we'll say person, and we'll pass my name Pratap, and my age is currently 20. So if I print the description, let's say Pratap dot description. So if I run this code, you can see that we have this Pratap is 20 years old. Okay. But let's have another one example here. Let's say we want to calculate age from the year. Okay, my age is 20, but I want to provide birth year here. I want to provide that flexibility so that the user can enter either their age or either their birth year. So in that case, what I could do is I can define another function. Let's say age from year, and let me just complete this and then I'll explain you. Take name, birth year. Okay, and here I will return the class, whatever I'm getting from here. So if you see here, I have something very different, right? So what is this? So let me just explain you what exactly it is. I'll add a class method decorator. We'll learn about decorator in the upcoming section. So if I say class method, that means that this doesn't have any association with the instance. But using this method, I can modify the class. How can I do that? I told you that we want to provide the flexibility so that the user can enter either their birth year or either their age, right? So how can we do that? Let's say current year. Current year is nothing but date dot today dot year, and what will be the age? Age would be basically current year minus birth year, right? So now I have the name, now I have the age, because this class accepts age, right? So what I can say is I can return the class. So what is this class? I don't know now yet, so let me just use it. Let me say name, and let me pass it age. So earlier when I instantiated this object Pratap, I say I was calling person and I was calling Pratap. I was passing the name and the age, right? Now what I want to do is I want to create an object. Let's leave it Pratap. Let's use Madhav. So Madhav is equal to, now what I can say is I can say person dot age from year. Okay, and here then I can pass Madhav, and he's very old, he is 35 years old, and let's say Madhav dot description. Let me run this code. Did we do something mistake? Oh yes, we did, because we should not pass the age, but we should pass the birth year, right? So Madhav is of 1990. Let's run this code. So he's 33 years old. But we are instantiating the class like differently, right? We instantiate here by using the class name, but here we use the class method. How does that really works? Here, if you can see, we are accessing this class age from year by using the name of the class, as we did in the static method. But how is this different from static method? Because it is having access to the class. So what's the class? Here I'm using person.age from year. That means when I get the class here, I'm getting the person class. Let's print that. Let's say CLS. If I print this, you should see we have the person class. That means whoever is calling this method, that particular class will be get passed to this CLS. So in that case, what is the CLS? This is basically person. So instead of writing like this, so this is very bound, we are hard coding it, right? Like let's say in the future section, we'll learn about inheritance. So we'll learn more about that in there. So let's say we have inheritance and we are using here, let's say here we are saying human. But now we are hard coding here, right? But we want here human. So in order to avoid all those things, like we are not hard coding here, we are using the class method, which we are getting, like which we are passing from here. So now whoever is calling this method, we are instantiating for that particular class. So I hope I'm able to help you understand the difference between the instance method, the class method, and the static method. So far, we have learned about the difference between the instance method and the static method, how we can call the instance method, how we can call the static method, and also we learned about the difference between the static method, a class method, and instance method. And here we learn how we can create an object based on the class method. Here we are creating an object of this class, and ultimately we are having the same result, like even using the instance method by creating an instance of that class, or by using the class method we are creating the instance, and we are still having the same type of behavior. Correct? So what's the advantage of this class method here? We have gave the flexibility for the user to create an object based on their birth year or their age. So I hope I'm able to help you out with all the concepts, and let's learn about it in the upcoming section. See you there.